She only wanted to open a simple account. No fuss, no drama, just a young black girl with big dreams and her first paycheck in hand. But the moment she walked into that bank, everything changed. The smiles turned into stares. The whispers followed her every move. Then came the accusation, one that would shatter her trust in ways she never imagined. They thought she didn't belong there, but what they didn't know would soon turn their world upside down. What happens when prejudice meets the truth? Aaliyah was 17, the kind of girl who believed that hard work could open any door. She'd just landed her first part-time job at a local cafe, saving every dollar to help her mom, and maybe, one day, start her own business. On that bright Saturday morning, she held her first paycheck in her hands, creased at the edges from how many times she'd looked at it. The bank downtown felt like a step into adulthood. She'd seen her classmates go there with their parents, but today, she was proud to walk in alone. Dressed neatly, papers in order, she waited in line with a quiet smile, already imagining the feeling of her own name on an account card. But as the minutes passed, she noticed the shift, a glance that lasted too long, a whisper between tellers. The woman behind the counter forced a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Aaliyah's excitement started to fade, replaced by a faint unease she couldn't explain. When she finally handed over her check, the teller hesitated, then excused herself to verify something. Aaliyah's chest tightened. She'd done everything right. Why did it suddenly feel like she was being watched, not helped? In that moment, she couldn't have known. This simple errand was about to unravel into something far bigger, something that would expose more than just a misunderstanding. The teller's voice was calm when she returned, but her eyes betrayed something else suspicious. "I'm sorry, miss. This check doesn't seem to match our records. Do you mind waiting while we verify it?" Aaliyah blinked. Verify it? Her paycheck had the cafe's name, address, and even her manager's signature. Everything was legitimate. Still, she nodded politely, trying to stay composed. She watched as the teller whispered to another employee, who disappeared into the back room. Seconds turned into minutes. The line behind her grew. People began to stare. Aaliyah could feel the heat creeping up her neck, the kind of heat that came when eyes lingered too long for the wrong reasons. Then came the security guard, a broad man in a navy uniform, walking slowly toward her, hand resting on his belt. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "we've had reports of fraudulent checks being passed. I'll need you to step aside." Her heart dropped. What? No, there must be a mistake. But he didn't look at her like someone making a mistake. He looked at her like someone caught. As she stood there confused, humiliated, she could hear the whispers around her. Another one trying to scam the bank. Probably stolen. Every word cut deeper. She wanted to vanish. She pulled out her phone. "I can call my manager, he'll confirm everything," she said, her voice trembling. But the teller shook her head. "Let's just wait for the authorities to arrive. It's procedure." Authorities. The word echoed in her mind like a siren. Her breath quickened. She thought about her mom, about all the times she'd been told to stay calm, to not give them a reason. So she stood still, clutching the paycheck like it was proof she still mattered. A man in a suit, maybe the branch manager, appeared, glancing from her to the paper, then back again. His expression hardened. "We'll need to hold this check for further investigation." Aaliyah's voice cracked. "You can't just please. I didn't do anything wrong." He sighed, the kind of sigh that said he'd already decided who she was. "Then you have nothing to worry about, right?" The guard stayed close, just in case she made a scene. People avoided her gaze now. Her excitement from earlier had turned into something cold, something heavy shame mixed with fear. And then, as if the moment couldn't get worse, her phone buzzed. A text from her father. "How's the bank, sweetheart? Did you open your account yet?" She stared at the screen, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. She typed back slowly. Not yet. They think I did something wrong. She didn't know it yet. But that message would set off a chain of events the bank would never forget. Because her father wasn't just any man. And the moment he found out what they'd done, everything was about to change. The police arrived before Aaliyah could even process what was happening. 2 officers walked in, their radios crackling, their eyes immediately locking on her. The room went quiet, so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Ma'am, we received a report of possible fraud. We'll need to see some identification. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her ID, trying to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. The teller stood off to the side, arms crossed, like she'd been waiting for this moment. One of the officers took the check, turning it over, scanning it like it was evidence of a crime. This signature doesn't look right, he muttered. It's my manager's, Aaliyah said softly. You can call him, he'll tell you. But they didn't call. They didn't even look at her phone when she tried to show proof of her employment. Instead, they exchanged glances, the kind that said they'd already made up their minds. The officer gestured toward the door. Let's step outside and clear this up. Outside, in front of everyone. She could feel every eye on her as she walked past the line of customers. Someone whispered, "Knew it." Another person sighed and looked away. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Just then, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The door opened and out stepped her father. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. He walked straight past the officers, straight past the teller, and up to the branch manager. "Is this how your bank treats its customers?" he asked, voice steady but sharp enough to cut through the silence. The manager blinked, confused. "And you are?" The man reached into his jacket, pulled out a set of keys, and dropped them on the counter. The keys had the bank's logo on them. "I'm the man who owns this branch," he said coldly. "And that's my daughter you just accused." The room froze. The color drained from the teller's face. And for the first time that day, Aaliyah wasn't the one being watched. For a long moment, no one spoke. The officers stepped back, their confidence faltering. The branch manager's words stumbled out apologies, excuses, empty phrases that couldn't erase what had just happened. The teller's eyes filled with guilt, but the damage was already done. Aaliyah stood there, silent. She wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of having to prove she belonged. Tired of being treated like a threat for existing in the wrong skin. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm but edged with something deeper. "You didn't deserve this," he said, and she knew he was right. But deep down, she also knew this wasn't just about her. The next day, the story spread across social media. Some called it justice, others called it overreaction. But for Aaliyah, it wasn't about headlines or apologies. It was about truth, the kind that makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to see what they'd rather ignore. She never went back to that bank again. But she did something better. She started speaking up at school, online, in her community, sharing what happened not to shame, but to remind people that dignity shouldn't depend on a skin tone or a last name. Because that's the quiet power of moments like this. They expose what's broken and remind us how much still needs to change. And maybe that's the real question we should be asking. How many Aaliyahs have to be humiliated before we finally learn to see each other as human?